Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman29, and thought I would come on and do a little video. I got a really good question from a viewer um, in the comments on Abraham and Isaac by ACJV33. Great questions. I get all excited about the documentary hypothesis, so I'm going to do a video on this because I think I don't think I ever have. In regard to the documentary hypothesis, what do you do with Mark 12:26, where Jesus attributes authorship of Exodus to Moses, or Ezra and Nehemiah, who continually refer to the books of Moses, or Deuteronomy 31:9 and 24 to 25? Yes, I know that Moses couldn't have written about the events of his life, or the kings listed in Genesis 36, or have called himself the most humble man on earth. But I still don't see where the documentary hypothesis has any validity. What do you think? It does, and probably one of the more modern scholars who have written books about this to the general public, so they could kind of get a grasp of this documentary hypothesis, is Richard Elliott Friedman, and he wrote the book "Who Wrote the Bible." It's one of the books that first led me to change my mind about a lot of things. It was the fact when my buddy sat down and color-coded his first 5 books using the documentary theory, and then handed it to me, and then had me look at it and see what I thought. And I looked at it, and I said, "What's this, Richard?" And he said, "It's the documentary hypothesis." And I looked at it, and my stomach sank, because of course Moses wrote the whole first 5 books. So then I started reading about Hebrew literature, its composition, and it led me on a course to study the Old Testament and the Bible like I have never done before. Richard Friedman also had an article on the documentary hypothesis in Biblical Review, 20-year magazine. And this is what he had to say about it. And I think the issue arises that people who, I don't know how to read Hebrew, but people who don't know how to read Hebrew can't see these differences in word usage. And also people who lack a clear knowledge of what's out there in archaeology and what's in the Dead Sea Scrolls in comparison to Jewish word usage, and also the different writing styles of the Hebrews throughout the ages, and each age had its own writing style. So that's just one of them. I'm going to read part of this article. It'll give some a clearer picture of support for this. One, as I already mentioned, linguistic. We separate the texts that have been identified with various sources, and we find that they reflect the Hebrew language of several distinct periods. The development of Hebrew, as we have observed through successive periods, indicates that the Hebrew of the writer J and the writer E comes from the earliest stage of Biblical Hebrew. The Hebrew of writer P comes from the later stage of the language. The Hebrew of the Deuteronomicus text comes from a still later stage of the language, and P comes from an earlier stage of Hebrew than the Hebrew book of Ezekiel, which comes from the time of the Babylonian exile. This chronological of what I can't read today, of the language of the sources has been confirmed through comparison with extra-biblical Hebrew texts. The characteristics of early biblical Hebrew have been confirmed through comparison with pre-exilic inscriptions discovered through archaeology. The characteristics of late biblical Hebrew have been confirmed through comparison with the Dead Sea Scrolls and other later sources. Despite the power of this evidence, it is practically never mentioned by those who oppose the documentary hypothesis. Now we get into terminology. Certain words and phrases occur disproportionately and sometimes only in one source but not in others. A few of these examples are the phrase, the place where Yahweh sets his name, or the place where Yahweh causes his name to dwell, occurs 10 times in D, but never in J, E, or P. The phrase with all your heart and with all your soul occurs 9 times, and all are in the D text. The phrase gathered to his people as a euphemism for death occurs 11 times, and all 11 are in P. The phrase be fruitful and multiply occurs 12 times, all in P. The congregation occurs over 100 times in the Torah, all written by the P writer. The term Sheol, identifying the place where the dead go, occurs 6 times, but never in J. 6 times in J, but never in the other sources. So that means the places possibly where Sheol is used in the Psalms may have been from the time period of J or by that writer. The term to suffer occurs several times in all 7 are in J only. There are hundreds of other occurrences that connect. Okay, consistent content would also be another reason. I'm just going to burn through this continuation of the narrative, connections with other parts of the Bible. Consistent context, the sources, there are nearly 100% consistent in this matter. The E and P sources identify God as El, or simply as God, Hebrew Elohim, until the name is revealed to Moses. After that, they use the name Yahweh as well. The J source, meanwhile, uses the name Yahweh from the beginning. In the entire Torah, the names Yahweh and El and the word Elohim occur over 2,000 times, and the number of exceptions to the picture I have just described 3. Despite this phenomenal fact, we still find writers on this subject asserting that the names of God don't prove anything. Farther, the sacred objects are also mentioned by each source with striking consistency. The tabernacle is mentioned over 200 times in P. It receives more attention than any other subject, but is never mentioned in J or D. It is mentioned only 3 times in E. The Ark of the Covenant is identified as being critical to Israelis' travels and military success in J, Numbers 10:33-36 and 14:44, but is never mentioned in the E text. In E, miracles are performed with Moses' staff in the text of Exodus, but in P, it is Aaron's staff that is used for performing miracles. This would be Exodus 7:9, chapter 7, 9-12, chapter 19, Exodus chapter 7, 9-12, and then 19, chapter 8, 1 and 2, and then 12-13, Numbers 17, 16-26, and Numbers 28. That is the priestly text where Aaron's staff is used. And also connections with the other parts of the Bible. The book of Ezekiel, P has much parallels with the book of Ezekiel. J and E are particularly connected with the book of Hosea. A vast series of connections with J, with the court history of David and in the 2nd Samuel. The sources' relationships to each other and to history. As noted earlier, the sources have connections to specific circumstances in history, and they have identifiable relationships with each other. J is believed to have been produced in Judea. So those are just some thoughts. So the ones ACJV33 mention are all post-exilic texts, both Mark, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Deuteronomy. So I'm going to try to, never done this before, on camera, show how this works. I'm going to try to do my desktop bring up my Big Shot Bible program because I have all this laid out. I took the KJV, new KJV, and marked up the law code, the first 5 books of Moses, the Torah, with the documentary hypothesis, so you can kind of get a picture on what it looks like. So I'm gonna try this. Not really sure if this is gonna work, but so this is Genesis chapter 1 here. I'll make this big. And this is green, as you can see. These here are the time periods. So just really quick. I don't know if you can see that there very well. So we'll go to Genesis 2. This is the writer. Here you have the priestly text, the redaction in 2:4, and then you start the second creation account. Let's see, second creation account by the J writer. So this kind of we'll go to chapter 3, J writer, chapter 4 Genesis. I'm trying to find a good mix here. Chapter 5. Here's a mix where it goes back from J to the priestly text. 18. Here's another one with 3 sources in it. Hopefully this is coming out okay. This is the redaction, later redaction. This is the P. This is the J. And you can see how some of this splits up into different colors. Right in here, Genesis 10:19, Genesis 20, go back and forth between P and J. So, so that right there just gives you kind of an example on a little bit on what it looks like, and I'm already over. So, sorry to drag you through this forever, and that's my little spiel on the documentary theory that I get all excited about. So take care, YouTubers. Take care of yourself and each other. And remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.